Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here with Holly Wasson of Capital Investment Advisors. You know, we finished up talking about aspirational. I think we were talking about purchases.
I don't aspire to be a CMO.
Right. Well, I was going to say, as someone alive in marketing, was that an aspiration? And how do you look at the CMO office? And do you aspire to be, you know, to hit the 3-year mark, which would put you in probably the 2% category? Or what is your aspirations, Holly?
Well, it was my aspiration to be a CMO. I love marketing. I light up. I'm very passionate about it. It gets me excited. I'm nerded out on it. I laugh with my daughter. My daughter is a junior at the University of Tennessee, also studying advertising, and I get no more joy than when she calls me and talks about a project she's working on, and we nerd out on strategy. So yes, I love this role, but it is not easy. And I do want to stay at Capital Investment Advisors. I do want to hit that year 3 plus. They are an amazing group to work with. But the CM role is, I think if you speak to anybody, no, it is not easy. And I think it's just how rapidly it has expanded and changed.
Yeah, I think we do lightning round, and we go around and kind of say what some of the observations we have. Before we do, give an idea of how big they are, Capital Investment Advisors, because when you hear CMO, sometimes it's like, this is a 13-person home improvement company, and I'm the CMO. Like, just give an idea of scale, because I think that helps explain the complexity of being a CMO.
Yes. We are a $6.4 billion AUM wealth management firm. We have 110 plus employees. We served 4,600 families nationwide.
Yeah.
And we are growing exponentially.
And if you had to guess how many regulations you are held accountable to in your marketing, would it be in the dozens or hundreds?
Hundreds.
Okay.
Hundreds.
So it is not an easy task. So with that note, my 2 quick things on why the CMO tenure has changed. Number one, you're seeing a generational change away from brand creative marketing to data-driven performance marketing. And it is a huge divide in generations. So I would probably say that the 60 plus CMOs that have been in those roles forever, it is almost impossible for them to understand the data revolution because they didn't understand the cell phone revolution. So that is a huge divide. I think that CEOs and CFOs made a huge mistake in removing those people, because the problem with data and all that stuff is it only tells half the story. And if you don't have the magic and the emotional connection, you're screwed. Number two, I think it is the rise in the power of the CFO, where everything is looked over by a CFO whose job is to not freaking understand marketing, right? If you're a CFO, your job is to look at numbers. Marketing does not tell stories about numbers. It can be part of it, but it does not tell that story. So there's my rant. Trip, what you got, bud?
Well, I think you're onto something, and I think that the key is marketers today, compared to when I came up and I was a generalist and I was in sales and a lot of other things, you're not taught how to have those crucial business conversations. And I think it really then gets down to the point, and you may be really, really smart, you may be in your 30s, and you may know data left and right. You probably don't know the background. But where were you taught as far as how to have that conversation with the C-suite?
Yeah.
And I think that's missing the generation that's in between right now. I agree with you. There's some of the creative generation that's my age that I came up with that can't talk data, and I think, you know, a lot of that we're slowly moving into the retirement phase. But I think people don't know how to have that conversation, and they don't know how to defend themselves and when to push back.
I think you're right, but I also think they don't know how to talk. So ultimately, Holly, your job is to get your salespeople leads. So what they don't understand is the correlation between the marketing team and the sales team. Your job when you are a CMO and you look good is when the CRO or the sales guy comes to you and says, you're doing a great job. Screw the CEO at that point, because the CEO is not involved in the day-to-day sales. That sales manager, those salespeople, if you can maintain the relationship, but like you said, and we talk about this all the time, I believe it is much easier to be a sales guy that learns marketing than it is to be a marketing guy that learns sales. I believe it's much easier. Sales is innate. Marketing you can learn. You can trick yourself into learning marketing. I did. I never had an intention of being a marketer, but I've been around selling marketing for so long, doing the show. You pick little tidbits up here. This picture starts, and I liken it to a web, right? You just got to know how to place things on the web. The web all comes back to you, but you can learn that. You can't train someone a marketer how to be a salesperson.
Holly?
It's funny. I am the daughter of an English teacher and a salesperson, so I feel like that makes a marketer. I think you've hit some of the key points. The division of brand versus performance marketing. one reason you asked me why Turner was so good, we had an amazing marketing research department, and I always had a research person joined at my hip who could help me analyze the data and make sure that I was looking at it correctly. We don't have, you're right, we don't have that in most companies anymore, and I think that's lacking. And I do think anybody who has just grown up with the performance side or anyone just the brand side, you're only seeing part of it. They have to work together. So I think that's one thing. I think the next thing is you talked about the CFO, like how do you have these conversations? It is very difficult when you see if sales has been working on its own, and that has one funnel. If you're driving people in because you have salespeople that are making sales on the ground really fast, so I think a CFO is thinking, why don't I just add more salespeople? Why do I need marketing?
Yeah.
Well, the problem is if you have a very specific client that you're pulling from, that your salespeople are talking to, if that channel goes away, overnight it could be disastrous.
It also depends on what you want your scalability to be. Some people don't want to scale, and if you don't want to scale, then that funnel is probably big enough. But if your ambition is to grow, you need the larger funnel, and you need to pull people in from a larger base, either geographically, demographically, income levels. You need to expand your base, and the only way to do that is by marketing.
Absolutely. So it's got to become. And then I always will say the marketing head and the sales head need to be best friends. I have a really good relationship with the head of our biz dev group. We understand each other. We get it. We understand how the relationship. That's key. That's not always the case in a lot of companies.
Yeah, I would say more often than not, it's not. Or in some cases where there's, whether they call it a chief revenue officer or not, and they have both. I've said in both. I've seen companies, a lot of times you see that CRO who is a salesperson and marketing becomes sales support. Occasionally you'll see a marketing person who doesn't understand the customers, and then sometimes you get someone who really does know it all. And I think that's where you see high performance.
Well, you just mentioned that you were a generalist marketer. And I don't think generalist marketers are even born anymore. I feel like, and I was too.
They're born. They're not trained.
They're
that's
not
for
trained.
Certain.
But I feel like that's how we were trained. And I think it was to my benefit that as I went through being trained in this traditional media, that's then when digital was born and we were on the cusp of it and we were learning it all. Right. I feel like you don't see as much of that generalist anymore because people either go straight to digital or straight to social, and they don't have the whole big picture.
Buzzwords. Yeah. Everyone wants to be in the hot area.
They do. Right? They want to be in what's new and
which
different.
Is insane because it changes so fast.
Your daughter's at Tennessee. I mean, what are people crawling over each other to get the internships around?
Oh, she absolutely wants to work on social media, and is the whole TikTok debacle going on right now. She's pulling her hair out. So,
and they banned it in India. So like, it's coming, man. I mean, I think
we don't have enough time. I was going to ask what our opinions are.
I think Zuckerberg's cozying up with Trump for a reason that they want. They're going to all go to Instagram. Everything you read is trying to push people away from TikTok to Instagram. So if you're Zuckerberg, an American-based company, get China out of there. Unless either that or the worst thing that they're going to do is they're going to spin it off, and then the only people that are going to afford it are somebody who already has a monopoly. So you're just digging yourself deeper into a hole. So we're screwing no matter what. That's why I love it. What Google's doing, they're like, spin off Chrome. Well, who's going to buy it? The only person that's going to buy it is someone who has a monopoly in tech. So you're taking one monopoly away from one because they probably pay more money to your lobbying campaign. All right. Well, we had our government rant. Holly, this has been an absolute pleasure. We covered a lot. Tell everybody where to find Capital Investment Advisors, website, social channels, everywhere they can find them. When's Wes on again?
Yourwealth.com. YOURWEALT. Well, can you cut that? Sorry. Yes. Yourwealth.com is where that you can find us. And you can hear Wes on Money Matters on WSB on Sundays.
Wonderful. And website and social handles, you guys on social media at all?
Yes, we're across social media, Your Wealth or Capital Investment Advisors.
Love it. Well, we appreciate it. Trip, always a pleasure, my man. Holly, it's been wonderful. And we will catch you next week. You've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3.